Indian parents make tons of sacrifices. They take out huge loans only so that their child can access the best quality education in a developed nation. However, something concerning is happening lately. The top study abroad destinations like the United States, UK, Canada, and Australia do not want international students. Actually, let me be specific. They do not want Indian students, and I feel ashamed to say this, it's for good reason. Today we try and break down why no country wants Indian students anymore despite these students generating billions of dollars in revenue for these foreign universities. As always, with the help of data and evidence. Let's get started.
Yeah.
There are too many Indians here.
Well, I do feel like I'm a stranger in my own country.
We're Canadian, we're multicultural, but come on.
In 2022, the Australian government refused about 50% of Indian student visa applications. This number was 41% for Canada, and in 2024, it marked a 10-year high in the US as well at 41%. Why is it like that? I know Indian parents view sending their kids to study abroad as a national sport. It's a huge deal to them. The quality of education in these countries is top class. So as incomes and access to credit grew in India, the number of Indian students in foreign universities also steadily grew. In the UK, Indian student enrollment grew 274% over the past 5 years. In the US, it grew 23% over the past 1 year alone. In the UK, Indian students make up 1/4 of the entire international student population, and this number is 1/3 in the US. In fact, over the past 2 years, Indian students studying abroad grew 47% in volume. But there was one more thing growing way faster than this: illegal immigration and student visa abuse by Indians. And these things are derailing the efforts of genuine Indian students trying to access a better life. I'll share data for all these claims. In 2020, about 1,000 odd Indian illegal immigrants were arrested at the US border. Just 5 years later, this number grew 4,200% to 42,000. Pew Research conducted a study which showed that about 21% of all Indians living in the US are undocumented. In 2023, Indians made up just 3% of all the illegal immigration incidents on the Canada-US border. Just a year later, this number grew 12 times to 36%, making Indians the third largest illegal immigrant group in the US. And here's the messed up part. All of this happens due to the misuse and abuse of student visas because they're the easiest to acquire. Also, this was the story only for the United States. It's the exact same for Canada, UK, and Australia as well. Basically, a lot of agencies exist in India that help people pose as students in order to get to another country. From there on, they overstay their visa, work for cash, or simply throw away their passport and seek asylum. This is a huge industry that you have no idea existed, and I have data to back this up. Just 6 months ago, the Australian government shut down 150 ghost colleges that didn't even exist that issued fake credentials to these students. These colleges only existed on paper. There was no campus either. And in 2021, authorities uncovered 600 instances of such fake college applications being used to enter Australia. Guess where all of these people were from? On the other hand, the Canadian government uncovers about 2,500 fake applications yearly. Just this year, they rejected 91,439 out of 220,000 Indian student visa applications on the grounds of them being a non-genuine entrant who had fake references, applications, or financial documents. Long story short, these aren't even real students. They're just pretending to be students in hopes of entering that country, finding work, and remaining there indefinitely. There have also been instances of them throwing away their passports and then claiming to be from a war-torn country like Iraq or Afghanistan in hopes of getting asylum. But then wait, why don't the authorities just catch these people and let the genuine students come in? Look, it's not that simple. Immigration is a very dicey space to play with. Let's just assume there's a country that has high immigration and all of it, 100% is legal. Despite that, they would face some policy making challenges. In recent times, we've seen more and more countries turn increasingly anti-immigrant because once a country experiences an inflow of immigrants more than what it can handle, things start to get very messy. For instance, the cost of housing starts to skyrocket, and when that happens, there is widespread inflation. And I'm not making this up. There was a study done at the University of Barcelona which showed that a 1% increase in the total number of immigrants caused home prices and rents to rise by 3.3%. Plus, more number of people competing for the same number of jobs using the same infrastructure puts a lot of pressure on the economy of that region. Now, I know what you might be thinking. On the other hand, the genuine Indian immigrants generate so much of revenue for these governments. After all, international student fees are nearly 3 times those of the local student fees. Why aren't they being grateful? I'll tell you why. But before I do that, if you learned something new and valuable up until this point, please consider subscribing to the channel. While genuine international students generate billions of dollars in revenue for the government, the local population isn't happy with immigration because they believe it causes cultural erosion. And keep in mind, the local population is the one that elects the government. So naturally, the government wants to keep them happy. When too many migrants flood a region, the local culture there starts to fade away, as well as their resources start to get burdened. For example, the residents of Barcelona are protesting tourists, even though tourism makes up a big chunk of Barcelona's revenue, because they believe that the tourists cause cultural erosion as well as crowd the trains, as well as cause home prices to go up. In fact, Barcelona is also banning Airbnbs for this reason starting 2028. And at first glance, all this talk about cultural erosion might sound superficial, but think about it this way. There are now neighborhoods in Canada and the UK where more people speak a language other than English. For example, in Brampton, Ontario, more than 80% of the population now is non-local, and this is how the locals feel about their culture being threatened.
And it's like a mini India.
Yeah.
There are too many Indians here.
We're Canadian, we're multicultural, but come on.
If we're going to their country, we will have to adapt to their culture, right? They should do the same thing here. Well, I do feel like I'm a stranger in my own country.
Indian music playing here. You've got Bank of India over there, Bank of Baroda. You've got Ganesh.
And wait, keep all of that aside, I'll give you some more real talk about cultural erosion. While Indians carry all their rich cultural heritage, wherever they go, they forget their civic sense. For instance, Indians in Leicester spat so much tobacco everywhere that the local government had to threaten them in their local language with a fine. So all of this cultural erosion, coupled with the rising home prices, overcrowded public transport, makes the local population resent immigration. And obviously, the government wants to keep the local population happy, so they take steps against it. And here's the shocker. Regardless of the immigration pathway, legal or illegal, Indians overdo it. More specifically, Indian students. They are on average more likely to bring in a dependent compared to any other nationality. In 2023 in the UK, about 140,000 Indian students brought along 39,000 dependents with them. A dependent to student ratio of 30%. Now, as usual, some twat might say, that's because India's population is high, okay? Don't blame the country for everything. Guess what? So is China. Despite having 114,000 active student visas in the UK, they brought along only 401 dependents, making their dependent to student ratio less than 1%. 30 times less than that of India, despite both countries making about the same 20% each of the total UK student population. If you still think our population is to be blamed, look at this. Between 2022 and 23, issuances for Indian student visas dropped 14%, but the same number grew for China, Pakistan, and even Nepal. All of these reasons have caused the governments of Australia, US, Canada, and the UK to crack down on student visas because they believe they are overburdened. Just these 4 countries host more than 2.4 million international students yearly, and all of this negatively impacts the genuine international students that we have to offer. Now wait, we need to get to the heart of the matter. Why is this happening? Why are so many Indians desperate to move abroad? For the people who try to do it legally, they want a proper education that actually improves their lifestyle and wages and isn't just a piece of paper. Getting a degree abroad, truly upskilling yourself, finding a job there, even if it is temporary, it means catapulting your family's wealth and their lifestyle by nearly 20 times back home. I still remember the conversation I had with my own grandfather where he tried to sell the idea of studying abroad to me. He said if you study there, work and save in a stronger currency, it would make buying a house back home easier. On the other hand, you can only access high quality education in India if you are privileged, if you have the ability and the means to go to a private school, if you can attend an IIT or an IIM, which by the way are limited in number and way more challenging to get into compared to an ordinary foreign university. The people who are incapable of doing this have to attend public schools where the infrastructure is crumbling. They have to go to universities where the curriculum is outdated and students barely upskill and as a result end up with low wages or no wages. In India, you can go to a private school, study at an IIM and have a decent life, and this happens only if you're born privileged or if you're extraordinary or both. On the other hand, if you get to a developed nation, even average can have a great life because there is a level playing field. And as for the illegal side of immigration, there's simply one reason why it happens. Keep in mind, even doing things illegally require a lot of money. There are families that pay north of 80 lakhs to 1 crore rupees to cross the US border illegally. Why do you think they do that? Izzat ki roti, meaning dignity of labor. Working as someone who lays bricks, cleans your home, mans a convenience store is objectively, supremely better in a developed nation than it is back home. You can work a minimum wage job in the West and still have an objectively better life than anyone working a minimum wage job in a developing country. There are two people working in construction, one in Toronto and one in Delhi. Despite having the same job, the one in Toronto has an objectively better life due to the stronger legal systems and infrastructure there. Even the poorest people have relatively better access to education, healthcare, and legal help in developed nations. In India, inequality tips the scales in the favor of the rich as only they can access all these things. As a result, the poor beg, borrow, and steal and do whatever they can to access a better life. The only way ahead is to level the playing field so that the billion-odd people living in poverty can feel like they have a realistic shot at success in their own country.